my jackal buzzard, I had an experience that I'll never forget. And it wasn't a hunting experience or anything like that. It was just flying the bird, obviously trying to just hunt something. And then it was just late afternoon, no thermals or anything, but somehow this bird managed to hook a thermal, and this bird just specked out. But it first flew over the hill, and then I was like, okay, I have to now go fetch this bird. It's getting, late and everything. So I ran over the hill. I can't find the bird sitting in a tree, nowhere. I don't know where it is. Swinging the lure, nothing, no birds popping out of nowhere.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and I believe what is now the 6th episode in this Cape Falconry Club series. Many thanks to them for helping us make this series happen and for that initial invite. It's a trip I'll never forget, and I've enjoyed so much bringing these episodes out to you all. It's been a great experience, so thank you again to them for that. And also thank you to the Falconry Heritage Trust for the grant that helped make the travel expenses affordable for this trip. And without that small grant, it would have been very hard to pay for the airfare and other expenses to help make this trip happen and this series happen. So special thank you to them as well. If you haven't checked them out yet, head to falconryheritage.org. so you can find out more information about how to help support them and their continued mission in preserving the falconry heritage for generations to come around the world. And I also want to say thank you, of course, to our newest sponsor that you've heard me brag about many times before on here, being Baba Yaga Crafts out of Poland. His equipment is second to none. It's top craftsmanship, and it's all great handcrafted stuff that it's really hard to beat quality-wise. So I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't yet. His anklets and jesses are my personal favorite, as you've heard me say many times before. So if you haven't checked him out yet, just head to @BabaYagaGoshawk on Instagram, or you can find out the other information about how to contact him on our website at falconrytold.com. And this episode is another episode that's kind of coming from another younger falconer's perspective. Thean hasn't been in the sport for too awful long, but he's already had a pretty decent amount of success and is kind of fortunate to be able to, well, I guess you could say fortunate or unfortunate depending on how you look at it, but he's one of the young falconers right now that is also kind of being brought up in some of these more modified or experimental changes to the Western Cape's rules and regulations under the Cape Falconry Club there. So it was kind of nice getting his take on what that's like, and also hearing about some of his learning experiences that he's kind of learned both good and bad as a young falconer in South Africa there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to this conversation for you to enjoy with Thean Prinsloo. So here we go. Thean, so how do you feel?
I'm feeling good. I'm good, and you?
I'm good, man. It's been a hectic week so far, but I'm glad that we finally got to see some cool stuff this morning, especially after the conundrum with your vehicle and everything.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but you know what? We can still go out and hawk, so yeah, it's good.
Yeah, at least there was room to pile in with some other people.
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah. And so as far as, the setup this morning and everything, like, is that typically how you set up most of your slips? I guess I should start off by saying congratulations too.
Thank you.
Because you were the only one that you saw catch anything this morning.
Yeah. So far, it looks like I'm the only one that has caught something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that has to be a nice consolation prize.
Yeah, I hope there is. We'll see.
I mean, hopefully there isn't anything too awful wrong with your vehicle or anything.
No. I think it's minor issues, but issues nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, so like I say, congratulations again. It was really cool getting a chance to see a long wing have a nice flight and take a head of game.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit more about, the ducks that you have here, because it just boggles my mind that there's a species like that, and maybe it's just not a species thing. Maybe it's more just, like I said, they're not used to being hunted and stuff.
Well,
but
Yeah, okay, so the species that we hunt quite a lot of is the yellow-billed duck, which is what I caught this morning. We've got a couple teal species, the Cape teal, the red-billed teal, which we also hunt, but they tend to be quite ratty, so if they feel pressured or whatnot, they'll turn back and go straight for water. And if there's a falcon in the air, they just stay there sometimes, so it can be quite tricky to get them off the water and to break from the water. Yellow-billed ducks, they're quite easy. You just have to scare them a bit, and they'll often just break away, and they'll try to outfly the falcon. And that's now great because, it puts up a good flight for the bird. We also have shovelers. I've never hunted one. I've never tried so far with this bird that I've got. From what I've heard, they're really fast and they're quite tricky to catch. And yeah, that's the ones I can think of. There are other species. There's many species of all sorts of quarry that we can try to hunt, but that's the main ones that we're targeting.
And what else are you trying to actively hunt right now?
Well, in the area where I currently fly the most it's easier to hunt duck. There is guinea fowl, but it's a bit tricky now with the bird that I've got because I don't have a dog. So it is tricky to get now a perfect setup. I can maybe try, but I can't guarantee a perfect outcome from a flight. There is also the Cape Franklin, but they also, in my area again, it's a bit tricky to find them. I don't really have the landowner permission with lots of them on the farms. Up here now in the mountains where we are, we have grey wing, which is a great species to hunt. But again, you need good dogs to find them and to get, nice point and all and flash perfectly. And there's also rock pigeons. That's another quarry that we can also take with the falcons. I haven't really tried them. I'd like to, but the wheat's now a bit long, so hopefully when they harvest, the rock pigeon will come in and eat the leftover grain. Yeah, then there will be some nice setups, hopefully.
And as far as the land that you have access to, all these different farmers' land, are there any other falconers more just immediately close to you?
I think there is one guy he works quite close to where I fly, so he's got some farms cleared around his work, so he flies there. But I've never had bumped into him or anything like that. I think some of the other guys have farms around where I fly, but for them it's mainly the odd weekend they'll go out there or something like that and fly there. It's not a regular spot for them to go fly.
With what you've caught so far, are ducks still predominantly the favorite quarry that you hunt so far? Or?
Well, I'm still quite young with falconry, and I'm still chopping and changing with the species of birds I'm trying. So now this year is the first year of the peregrine, and she's hunting duck. So it's my first proper year now going after duck, and I'm enjoying it. I definitely think I'll continue doing it. So I'm kind of enjoying it at the moment. Yeah.
Well, and so how many years have you been in it then?
I think it's now 4 years, close to 4 years, something. Yeah, around that much. Yeah.
Yeah, and so as far as the way the system works here and everything, what's been kind of your overall experience? Have you really had any issues or anything? Or
I personally haven't had any issues. I think that the club has been very supportive of the youngsters, and they really do help you and guide you to make progress. And if I look at myself, that's just what's happened. I started off with a female jackal buzzard, which was a rehab, and now I'm after a couple years I'm now flying a captive bred peregrine. So I think if you just look at it from that angle, it's definitely I'm making progress quite quick.
And as far as the peregrine that you're flying right now, are you the first person to fly it, or did somebody else fly it before you?
This one was passed down to me from another falconer. As far as I know, he wasn't flying her anymore, and she was just sitting in a pen. He does captive breeding of falcons, and I don't think he sort of paired her up with any other bird or anything. So he just wanted someone to fly the bird, and I was now open and free looking for a bird.
And how many seasons was this bird flown before?
I think she's flying her third season, but I think she's only had one complete season of hunting.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I mentioned it several times before now. People have heard me say this, I'm sure, multiple times in this series, but It's like I said, how you all do things here, and how all of the birds kind of belong to the club, even if you were to buy one and things. It's still such a foreign like concept to me. So I mean, as far as what you've done so far, I mean, kind of talk a little bit about the experience with the buzzard, and I mean, I know Andre was telling me that as far as, I don't know, species goes, they're kind of the one that's the most closely related to our red tail, or fairly close. Like, I mean, what was your experience with that bird?
Well, I was now young and fresh in the falconry world, so for me it was like I got a bird and it's got talents, it can catch stuff, so that's what I wanted to do. So none of the sort of preconceived ideas of the species sort of stopped me from doing things. So I was just like, okay, let's hunt things. It's a big bird. I think I can't remember exactly what her weight was, but she was definitely over a kilogram. So quite a big, chunky bird. And I was just like, okay, let's just try and catch stuff. But they're not quite like your red tails that will just go for bigger quarry species, especially like the bigger rodents or mammals. So I think I tried her on guinea fowl. The best I got was her just flying and landing amongst the guinea fowl, and then she would just look at them and follow one around a bush, and then they would all just gang up on her and chase her off. I've also tried her on Cape Franklin, and that surprisingly, she seemed to be quite keen on them. I'm not sure if it was the coloration or the way they scurried around the ground or between the bushes and things. Not sure what it was that sort of got her attention, but she would actually go for them, and she's pulled feathers on them before, but never once actually caught one. She caught young Egyptian geese, which wasn't really challenging for her because they couldn't really fly and they were just running around the fields. But then again, they are sort of a pest bird here in the area. So the farmers were happy, and so she caught them. She caught the odd mouse or two. But like again, I was just trying to have fun. I was just trying to get that bird up and trying to hunt things and so on. So and again, it's a buzzard. It's sort of a bird that's tricky to get going, and the guys, I think they use it as a sort of beginner bird to see, you really are into this. And it's a big bird, and if you make a mistake with handling it or something, it will show you, it will foot you or whatever. But luckily for me, my bird was quite a sweetheart, so she wasn't too aggressive or anything towards me, especially if I made mistakes or whatnot. So I enjoyed the bird. Later on, released her on my grandpa's farm. And my grandpa still saw her flying there a couple of weeks later, and months later still there. So I'm sure she's doing good.
Yeah, I know Andre was telling me that. That was one of the things that he thought it was pretty funny about. When he took you on as a the apprentice and stuff is normally those buzzards they really aren't all that friendly for the most part, but for whatever reason you end up with one that was just a sweetheart for some reason. It's so funny. I don't know, like it really is kind of amusing how sometimes, I mean, whether it's a blessing or a curse later, we end up with these really nice birds as our first bird and stuff. But I had one that was kind of similar as well, with my first red tail. But I mean, so I mean, how many head of game then did you end up taking with that bird?
Oh, probably like 3 or 4. It was really not a lot. No.
It's more of just a gauge, a litmus test kind of bird for you then.
But I mean, I was enthusiastic and I just wanted to do it, so I tried.
Yeah. And as far as your next, whenever you were able to move to your next bird, what was the next experience?
My next bird was a musket African goshawk. That bird was actually flown by Fred, another member of the club, and so he got the bird actually from my garden. It was a passage bird. Actually, it was still first of all, there was a breeding pair of African goshawks just on the other side of our property, and there was one youngster in the nest, and that one now grew up to hang around the garden. And me being me, I'm interested in the birds, and I was having fun. So this guy would come and sit in our garden, and goshawks, our African goshawks, can become quite tame, especially if they grow up, the nest is now in a urban area, and the nestlings grow up in that urban area. They become quite used to people. So this guy was pretty chill around people. you could walk in the garden and, oh, wow, you'll just see, oh, they're sitting right above you, 2 meters above your head. So later on, I would take a pigeon wing or whatnot, and I would like throw it out for him, and he would actually come down to it, and I would try and creep closer to him. It actually got to the stage that he would sit in the tree, and I could climb up to him, and while he's eating, I could touch the food and his feet. And then Fred now was looking for a goshawk, so we trapped that bird for him, and then he was flying it for, I don't know how long it was, but he flew it for quite a while, maybe a few months or whatnot. Then he passed the bird on to me, and then I started having fun. And that bird for me was still like the bird that I sort of clicked with, and we hunted quite nicely together. And I was still in school then, so it was quite fun. In the afternoons, run back home, or get back home, check the bird. Oh, the bird's on. Wait, now I've got to, quickly before tennis practice or hockey practice, I've now got to run out, fly the bird. And it doesn't matter what the weather was. And luckily for me, I had smaller farms, like farmland around our property. So I could quickly now run out there and fly the bird in the rain and terrible winds, whatever, just fly and catch a few small birds and then quickly back home off to, sport practice, whatever. And that was fun. And he definitely learned, okay, we're working as a team. Got to the stage that I could just walk the field. He would take off from the glove, chase something. If he misses, he'll either land, then I'll walk past, and then he'll come back to the glove just out of his own, ready for the next slip. And it was quite efficient hunting as well, because he knew we're working as a team. So I just literally had to walk a field, and he was now, keen to hunt and always ready. So I had lots of fun with that bird.
And as far as, you mentioned you trapped it, like, do you use BCs or Dogazas for those?
That we used the BC. And he was so chilled and tame, it wasn't much of a mission.
I was getting ready to say, probably just landed on it and just kind of let you pull him off of it, right? Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we even like, I don't know, some of the Cooper's hawks and different things that we have in our urban areas. I mean, they can definitely get more used to people. With something we've noticed, but sometimes they get almost too comfortable. Like, do you guys have any issues with some of your African goshawks as far as some public places? Like, do they, like nest in parks or anything, and you have issues with them or anything with them?
I don't think you have issues with them being around and annoying people in that sort of way, but you often find them in your chicken coop or your pigeon coop or whatever. Like, if you got some small bird as a pet, they might rock around and show up, So in that case, people might see them and, this is a bit of a problem. This bird's now attacking my pets or something,
Yeah.
So I think in that case, but it's not like they're a problem bird in general. They just...
So they don't often nest around where people are?
They will. You'll find them in parks and people's gardens and everything. And the African goshawks, they quite like the fig trees around here. Quite interesting. They're also there by our yard. They nested in the fig tree just across the wall from us, or the property from us. And so it's definitely fig trees. Other guys in the club have also noticed that they find the nest quite a lot in fig trees, and fig trees, you do get a couple of them in the towns. That's often where you'll find a nest as well.
Gotcha. So you said you're graduated now? You're not?
Yeah, I'm finished with high school. So I finished with grade 12 here in South Africa. I'm now at a university studying.
It probably must be pretty difficult then, like you said you were involved in a lot of sports and stuff. And
that was now in school. Now at the moment it's, there's not really much sport going on.
So, I mean, how many times a week were you able to fly then with sports and everything while you still were in high school?
I made it every day. I just took the bird out and I went. It was just, And I think later on I did stop playing tennis, and that was just, it was just to make a bit more time. And it was also getting now later in my school career, and it was just like I need to focus on one sport maybe, because it's just a bit too much going to all the different sports and so on. So, then I just focused on hockey, and then I had time to fly the birds as well.
Yeah. I didn't even know you guys had hockey here.
Oh, yeah. But it's not the ice hockey. It's field hockey.
Field hockey.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome that, even as a kid, I mean, and you're still so young as it is, obviously, but, like being in school and, having that much dedication to, make it an everyday thing. And, I can imagine then it's probably really not surprising that you've been able to advance as quickly as you have.
Well, I mean, if you're dedicated, and then you stick to it. So, it doesn't matter what circumstances you're in, unless it's really impossible. But oftentimes you just make a plan.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I wouldn't say it was too challenging, but again, I can imagine if you look at now a younger person, there's always like video games and other stuff that can keep you busy. For me, it was like, no, I want to get out and fly the bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't do a lot of the other distractful things.
No. I didn't have any video games or anything like that. My parents were definitely, they weren't too keen on getting it for me, because I know, like, when I was really young, I saw all the other kids like with video games and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I really want one. And they were like, no. And I think my parents are obviously good parents, I think. And they knew now, okay, I've got this little spark in me, this falconry thing growing. And I think they wanted to now sort of, keep that going. And I think they try to keep these distractions away from me. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. So after seeing how just ate up with everything that you are, they don't regret just going ahead and just getting you an Xbox or PlayStation and being done with it.
No, they make that joke as well. They're like, oh, we should have just gotten you an Xbox, because this falconry is way worse. I'm talking too much about it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine that they probably would almost rather you be obsessed, and it probably would have been easier to deal with, all the things you had going on if you were just a quote unquote normal teenager or whatever. But what are you studying right now?
So I'm doing a bachelor's in sciences in biodiversity and ecology. Yeah, that's what I'm doing at Stellenbosch University. But Stellenbosch University, it's actually a town, so the university is part of the town. If you drive through there, it's a lot of students is all over the place.
So it's kind of between where you live in Cape Town.
Right? So it's literally like halfway between where we were for the conference and then my home. So when we were driving back, if you had to look on the right, it would have been on that side.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, so gotcha. Yeah, no, that helps a little bit. So it's kind of right in between there, and because where we were at in the conference was pretty much like downtown, like Cape Town, right?
Yeah, that was basically Cape Town. Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, and I mean, I guess it probably helped with you, having so many accessible areas to hunt so close to where you live. I'm sure that probably is the only real thing that made it really feasible for you to get out every day while you're in school, right?
Yeah. Because I could just walk or hop on my bicycle or something like that, and it's pretty easy. Some of the other farms that were a bit further away, my parents would drop me off and then come pick me up like an hour or so later. That was quite funny if I caught something within the first few minutes, because then I'm just sitting there. So it was pretty easy to just get around to the farms close to me.
So as far as the birds that you have flown so far, I mean, what are the main differences that you've noticed, and like how difficult has it been for you to kind of, pick up on, working with, these birds' different personalities and stuff? I mean, what are some of the things that you've learned from some of these birds?
Okay. I'm just quickly going to name all the birds I have flown. So I've flown now the jackal buzzard and the goshawk. Then after that, I flew the red-breasted sparrowhawk, then a Lana falcon, female, and now the peregrine. So the jackal buzzard definitely was a big bird and made me realize, okay, these things can hurt me, but she wasn't too bad. So and that bird didn't teach me much about weight management because it's such a big bird and slow metabolism. But it definitely taught me things about, okay, walking in the field, watching the bird and all that sort of things. The goshawk definitely taught me a bit more field skills in terms of hunting and, stalking quarry and so on. And also trying to get the bird to work with you so that you don't now end up with a situation where the quarry is flushed and the bird's not with you, or it's sitting in a tree somewhere else or something like that. The red spar was a bit more tricky because I think it's just because of when I trapped that bird, it was still a bit inexperienced in terms of hunting itself. I think it was quite a young bird and hadn't yet caught a lot of quarry. So I was sort of, it had to learn around me, which made it a bit difficult because if you trap a passage bird, you'd think, okay, now I can just hunt anything. It knows what it's doing. For me, on the other hand, it was a bit more like, I have to now show this bird how to hunt, what it can hunt. That was a bit tricky. The Lana, they're quite intelligent birds, so they quickly realized the easiest way to get food. And And I found that a bit difficult, that bird a bit difficult to get going on game. Eventually, we just found, eventually I caught, it's called a thickney, and we call it a dikop. So eventually she just caught one of them, and I don't know, flip switched in her, and she started becoming a bit more keen on catching things. So yeah. And then, yeah, this female peregrine I'm flying now, she's just game for everything. Her mentality is just see something flying, I want to catch it. So it's a bit easy with her to work with her in terms of hunting. Yeah.
What are the kind of things that you did to, I don't know, like with your, I don't know, hunting conditions and things? I mean, what were some of the things that you did to try and work through some of those things?
Well, first thing, I just tried to get her to realize, okay, straight from the glove, you got to chase something. So then I used small lures also and made it look like little birds. Sometimes even just took bird carcasses, and I would throw that out, try and drag it with a fishing line or something, try to make a little system where I could pull it away from me, just to get that bird to realize, okay, you got to catch that. And then also with eating those small carcasses, bird carcasses and things, you would obviously realize, okay, feather, it means, okay, bird, it's a food, I can now chase that. Then it was just walking through a field quite a lot until she eventually, started chasing things until she actually caught something. Then once she caught that first bird, it was, I wouldn't say easy after that, but then she realized, okay, these little small birds popping out from the bushes, I can actually catch them. Only thing is she caught, I think the first bird that she caught was a cisticula. I don't remember which specific species, but then she sort of got hooked on cisticulas, and they're pretty easy for red spot to chase. Then it became almost too easy for her to catch them, and she focused too much on them, and they weren't sort of pushing her limits in terms of how she could fly and chase a quarry. So then it was a mission of trying to, avoid them and try to flash other things for her. And that took quite a while until she actually connected with something other than a cisticula. And from there, just, got another species. And then by the end of the season, we were having quite nice flights on pretty much anything, any quarry. Yeah, that's obviously the right size for her to catch. Yeah.
Well, and as far as weight management from bird to bird and stuff too, like, I mean, I know you said that you didn't really learn much from the buzzard in that regard, but with the smaller birds and then going from that to the the long wings. I mean, what have been some of the different things that you've noticed worked best for you in regards to the weight management with these different species?
So the musket Afgos, he definitely had a faster metabolism, not quite as fast as the red spar, but it was fast, and I learned quite a bit on him with, checking the food, making sure he had the right amount of food, and weighing him twice a day or so, or weighing him several times throughout the day to make sure he's on weight. But then again, he was quite a easygoing bird, and if he was slightly off weight, it didn't really affect him that much. He was pretty much keen to go after stuff. The red spar was a bit more finicky just because of the metabolism and being quite a small bird and sensitive to temperature and so on. So I did keep her pretty much in a Wendy house, which was still, it wasn't quite as warm as inside, or the climate or the Wendy house's temperature and so on is not quite as constant as what it would be in like inside the house, but it was definitely not like different to, well, it was definitely more constant than just a normal plain sort of mews that, fresh air can move in and out. So it was, the Wendy house solid wood sides definitely kept the temperature more constant, made it a bit more easier to predict her weight and so on. I definitely had days where I mispredicted her weight and she was a bit off weight or whatever. And I also weighed her twice a day or so, sometimes just several times throughout the day. Another thing I did with her is throughout the day, I would give her some little tidbits and so on, just to make sure she still has that energy. By the time we out hunting, she's actually got some energy in her still. So just making sure that her tank is the whole time going. There's some fuel.
And what were you primarily feeding during, to kind of keep metabolisms a little bit more, consistent from?
Well, so I was feeding her basically pigeons back then, pigeons that we shoot. And obviously the quarry she catches, I allow her to eat it, and then she'll get a blowout crop or whatnot. Then from there, it's just wait until she's back down to weight and then take her out again and hunt.
Yeah. And I mean, were you feeding most of the birds that you flew pigeon though, or were you feeding anything different from?
Well, if I could get something else, give it to them, like quail but it's mainly pigeon, just because there's so many of them in the area, and you can get permission to now shoot them, and you can fill up the freezer with them as well. So it's quite convenient. Yeah.
Well, and that's something else I was talking to Andre about before. I asked him, if you guys commonly, feed a lot of pigeon, because I mean, that's something that, we have to be really conscientious of, because of a lot of our pigeons we have access to, of course, have the typical diseases and everything. But I mean, do you find that where you're shooting your pigeons for food, that they tend to carry less disease and stuff, or are you guys just do take the same measures in how you prep them and everything?
Yeah. So we personally, where I shoot, I don't think I've that many issues with disease, but then again, it can be anywhere. You never know. We freeze the pigeons, so hopefully some diseases will die off from freezing. Then obviously when we defrost the pigeon and we feed it, we usually take the head and the whole crop out, so that if there's any sort of disease in there somewhere, it's gone. And guts and stuff we try to avoid feeding as well. So that's what we try to do. Yep. But then again, things can happen. The disease can somehow pop up, and there it is on your bird has got it, and now it's a problem. It happens. So
yeah, because there's quite a few that freezing really doesn't affect.
Sure,
too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like I said, it's kind of nice learning, what consistencies between different countries there are, and how, and what you're feeding some of these different species that you don't really have much experience with. And I didn't figure it'd be too much different, but I, like I said, I didn't know how many subtle differences there might be, between how, we do things versus how you all do things. And, I mean, I didn't know if you all I've heard you all mention kind of, different intervals as far as like hours of like the crop and stuff,
yes,
and 24 or 48, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you don't mind, just kind of explain that a little bit, how you guys go about doing some of that stuff.
So with the bigger, I guess you can do it with any bird, the sort of 24-hour crop, 36 or 48-hour crop. But you tend to do it with the birds that got a bit of a slower metabolism, such as the lanner. So I also did it a bit. You would feed them, and then you would try and let that crop put over, and you would leave them for quite a while, especially the lanner, because they're a desert bird, and they can obviously go for quite a while without food. And you fly them in a high condition, but hungry. So they, especially when you're hunting, if they're hungry, they'll put in the effort and catch something. So if you do now like a 36-hour crop or 48-hour crop, it just gets that hunger going where they'll actually now want to, definitely try and catch something. And then again with the peregrines, we also do it. Like myself now, my bird caught something today, gave a good crop. I might fly now tomorrow afternoon just to give it that little bit of time just to put over the food and so on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds pretty consistent for the most part. Yeah. I mean, didn't figure it probably wouldn't be, but well, that's cool. Like I said, thanks for elaborating on that stuff a little bit. But I mean, as far as, what you've experienced so far, I mean, with everything, like what has been kind of your favorite bird to fly so far out of the ones that you've flown?
Ooh, I kind of enjoyed all of them. The jackal buzzard, not so much in terms of hunting, but it was definitely fun to be outside with a bird, just being out in the outdoors. I enjoyed all the birds. The Afgos or African goshawk I enjoyed just because he worked well with me, and I felt like this is an awesome team going. The red spar was just awesome to watch because it's chasing these small birds and putting in long, chases and so on. The lanner was just fabulous to watch in terms of the bird thermaling and just specking out in the sky and then putting in these, massive stoops. And the peregrine as well is just, the sheer speed and, the hunting capabilities as well. So, it's just...
So you refuse to pick a favorite?
Yeah, I refuse. I think I've enjoyed all of them. I must say, flying a long wing and just putting the bird up, and then you have basically like 5 to 10 minutes, and everything's got to happen in that time frame. It can be a bit boring for me. because it's just happened so quick. And sometimes I have that sort of urge in me to just keep going. And with my Lana as well, once I flew her for well over an hour, just because I refuse to, like I want to flush stuff. So I just run like crazy in the field and the bird's above me and follows me. So I enjoy that as well. But then again, it gets frustrating if you run around for an hour and don't catch something. So I also enjoy that thing of just that you got that time frame. You put the bird up, the bird has a chance to chase. If the bird now doesn't manage to catch the quarry, you can now call the bird down, reassess what happened, what you can do differently next time, and you try the next day. You try to now make a slight change or whatever, and then you can see the results, the next day or the following day or whatever, and then you can sort of make changes, and then you'll see some results, obviously. Yeah.
Well, and kind of going back a little bit then to kind of, your experience so far with, the system and everything, like, I mean, just from a young person's perspective who's relatively new and coming in and still kind of in it, and trying to work your way up, to, kind of, put in your tenure and everything, like, is there anything so far that you think that, you would rather see be a little different, or are you pretty happy overall with the way the system is?
I'm pretty happy with the way it is. I'm also I feel like I'm also at that stage where I'm kind of just going with the flow, and I'm not being too picky as to what I want or anything. So I'm quite just happy with how it is.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like you think that there's overall like an adequate amount of people that, I mean, I know you said that so far your experience has been great with, the mentorship and the other people being willing to help, but I mean, do you see that continuing to be, sustainable for the Cape Club? Or
I think so. I think we'll definitely maintain that standard and could even get better, or it should. I think it will actually as well. And I think it will definitely get better.
Okay, well, you're listening to this, Andre. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth. He's going to take up the mantle, Yeah, but anyway, no, like I said, I think that, like I've mentioned before, also there's always things that in hindsight, you think might be able to be improved upon or could be tweaked to be a little bit better, or whatever. But it's sometimes hard to appreciate some of that stuff whenever you're still kind of coming up. But there's also sometimes things that for some people, at least in their situation, are kind of glaringly obvious, from the get go. But I mean, if you've had an overall great experience so far, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
But, so as far as a particular hunting experience, or I know you refuse to pick a favorite and all that kind of stuff, but like as far as memorable flights or memorable experiences with your birds so far, what's been like the one that's kind of stuck out in your mind the most?
There's too many actually. Some of them are just it's not even like they were just nice things to see, the way the bird flew, even odd things, just as like a bird's wing beat or something a bit funny, just like the sparrows, the way they can just, turn or something through cover. I can't really pick now. I don't know. I'll have to think now. I must say, okay, my jackal buzzard, I had an experience that I'll never forget. And it wasn't a hunting experience or anything like that. It was just flying the bird, obviously trying to just hunt something. And then it was just late afternoon, no thermals or anything, but somehow this bird managed to hook a thermal, and this bird just specked out. But it first flew over the hill, and then I was like, okay, I have to now go fetch this bird. It's getting, late and everything. So I ran over the hill. I can't find the bird sitting in a tree, nowhere. I don't know where it is. Swinging the lure, nothing, no birds popping out of nowhere. And I wasn't flying with telemetry at that time with that bird. And then I looked up and I see this bird pretty high up, starting to circle, and there's my bird up in a thermal. Had no idea there would be a thermal that time of the day. And there she goes, and I'm just standing there swinging the lure, trying to get her attention. Nothing's happening, and she just specks out, and I'm freaking out. So then I start just ran, like she drifted off to the one side as she was now hooked this like late thermal, and so I started just running that direction. Don't know why, just going crazy, just trying to get there or something. Then I was sort of about to give up just swinging the lure. I'm like, oh, flip, this bird's gone. So then I started walking home, and it was pretty late. So yeah, on my way home, I'm now pretty sad. I'm like, flip, how I'm gonna now explain this to the club? My bird's gone and everything, and I'm like, oh shucks. Now, then I just happened to look off to the side, and I see, flip, there goes my bird. So I think while I was now running around going crazy, swinging the lure, my bird saw me way up there, stooped down, but I packed up my stuff, and she obviously now thought, oh, the lure's gone. Where the flip is the lure? So then she just stopped mid-air stopped from stooping, whatever. Then I just happened to see her flying there. She was still pretty high. Then I was like, oh, great. And I couldn't really tell if it was her. It could have just been an odd bird. And then I just happened to see the jesses. So then I was like, oh, great. Swung the lure, and she put in a nice, pretty stoop straight to me. Landed on the lure, and I was relieved. But that I'll definitely not forget. It wasn't a great hunting experience, but it was definitely the first time I felt stressed, like my bird was gone. And then I had that bird came back, and I felt like that relief again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I can relate to that. I had a similar experience. Yeah. I mean, I think most apprentices, early apprentices especially, kind of have at least one of those where they just think that they're going to be the biggest, failure ever or whatever. But well, and kind of on that note, I mean, what's been kind of the hardest lesson you've learned so far with your birds? Like, what's been the biggest mistake, I guess, you've made so far that you've had to learn from? Or it doesn't even have to be a big one or whatever, but I mean, like,
there's lots of little mistakes along the way, and lots of them are common little things. So, I don't know. I can't really think of a big major one or anything like that.
Well, I mean, if you've not had a big major one yet, then that's good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good. It means that there's still mistakes to come,
Oh yeah, so, well, you'll make one eventually, I'm sure, but it's part of it. But well, I mean, what's been you think the most valuable small one that you've learned from
actually, no, I got a mistake. This bird that I've just received now at the beginning of this year, this peregrine. I was now training her to the drone, and now we moved off the drone, and now we're free flying. And I thought, no, this bird, she knows that we're working together. Then I was a bit stupid, and I put a little thermal, and the thermals were strong, and there was also quite a strong wind as well, so she got pushed off further and further away. It ended up becoming a tracking session, and only a couple hours later did we find her, and I was stressed, and I had to have help from other falconers and everything. That was definitely stupid, just thinking, and also I came from the Lanner, which is, they can be quite loyal, and so I thought, it's the bird will be the same as the one before, but no. So that was definitely a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for being transparent about, being willing to share. I mean, we all learn from each other, so, but, well, I mean, overall, I think, I mean, unless you can think of really anything else that'd be noteworthy to share. I mean, I do want to get like one last, like sentiment from you, or, the best piece of advice that you can think of so far. I mean, I know you haven't really been doing this for a super long time, but I mean, from your perspective as another young falconer, and not just young as far as your tenure, but young in age as well. I mean, what do you think is the best piece of advice that you think you can pass on?
I think, what I did that I think I'd like sort of pass over to other people is I just had a pure interest in birds of prey, and I looked at a bird book, and I thought, okay, which birds for me interested me and which ones I'd like to hunt with. So I sort of lined up my interest of style of hunting with the bird species that can hunt in that sort of way. I think that's good, because it's obviously not good to end up with a bird that you don't enjoy, that doesn't really hunt and doesn't really get you going. I definitely say, try and find a species of bird or something that sort of gets you going. Don't always follow the trend. I don't know. And obviously listen to everyone, chat a bit to everyone, sort of make your own sort of opinion on things. And again, sometimes it's also best to listen to one person, to follow that one person, but you're going to have to now figure that out and try and find that one person, or you have to now listen to a couple people, make sort of like opinion on your own. And it's difficult falconry. It's a lot of thought and so on has to go into it, and you have to think quite a bit on what you're doing.
Yeah, sometimes discerning, what the best source for you to really, listen to at times.
And you must just get out with people. That's the other thing. It's obviously not good to be hanging out on your own, because then you don't see your own mistakes in contrast to other people. That's definitely one thing. You have to just be around other people that have experience, and you'll see. You don't always have to, ask everything and talk to everyone. But if you just hang around them, you'll see it. Even simple things with the way they manage the birds, and like this one guy said. There was one guy in our club, he said, steal with your eyes. So I do that quite a bit. If I see something that someone does that seems quite nice, I'll sort of take that idea or something like that. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I guess as far as, what do you think you'll want to do next?
Ooh. Yeah, I want to try all the birds. That's one thing. Yeah.
Well, be careful about that too. You can fall. That's a trap you can fall into as well. Speaking from experience. But well, like I said, I guess we can go ahead and wrap up with that then. And unless you have anything else that you want to share,
I think I'm good. I've spoken quite a bit. So
it's all good, man. Well, like I said, congrats again on your catch today.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll continue to see some cool stuff the rest of the week. I know it's supposed to rain again tomorrow. But,
well, we'll still go out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, like I said, thanks again for agreeing to do this. And let's go find something else to get into.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.